Now let's jump to a question that might require us to create a chart to explore this. In this case, we're going to create a scatter plot. Anytime you see a question that deals with correlation or the relationship between two continuous variables, a scatter plot is a good place to start. So here the question is there a correlation between guest satisfaction and total room price? Now look, guest satisfaction is a measure and it's numeric, so it's a continuous variable, and our room price, or in this case it's total price, we probably ought to change that question to be property, not like price per night. So it's total price, we're going to take total price. So we're going to drag guest satisfaction along the rows, and I always get this mixed up, so I may have to switch the axes. And then we've got total price there. I'd prefer to have guest satisfaction on the bottom, so I can just swatch the axes here. So now I get guest satisfaction on the bottom and I get total price along the side. But you'll notice by default it's summing all the points, and so it creates 1 point. This is the sum guest satisfaction versus the sum total price, and that's not what we want. We want to keep all of our listings as a separate data point. So what we do is we go up to analysis and we uncheck aggregate measures, and then you can see we get more data points. So each of these points represents a listing, whereas before, if I undo it, that represents the sum of all listings, the sum guest satisfaction overall and the sum total price overall. So we're going to redo that. Well, I'll actually show you again. If we go analysis, I can uncheck aggregate measures. And now you can see we've got some outliers. And so if we're really looking for a trend, a correlation, here let's show you, if we take this, if we go over here to the analytics pane, and we can drag trend line in, and we'll just drag it onto linear so we get a straight line. You can see right there, it's kind of hard to tell if there's a trend there. That's because we have so much space, so much range on our y-axis and our x-axis. But we're just going to kind of shorten our y-axis and maybe cut it off right about here. That's about 2,000. So I'm just going to double click the y-axis. There we are. And then I'm going to click fixed. I'm just going to change it to be 0 to 2,000. So we can kind of zoom in on the points here. There you go. Then I'll close this, and you can see that line still looks pretty straight. And so this is where you get to like kind of think what's causing that line to be straight, because we kind of see a trend up and to the right. But there's probably a high density of points down here, you know, that's pulling that line down. And so the trend line is very useful. And again, the way we did that, I'll just go ahead and delete it. Can we actually get it out of there? The way I did that is if you go to analytics, so usually you're seeing the data tab. If you go to the analytics tab, you can drag trend line in there, and you could drag it on any of these, but we'll drag it on linear and it pops up that trend line right there. So that's how we're going to use a scatter plot. I'm going to do that one more time just so you can see. I took guest satisfaction, I put it along the columns, that's where I ended up putting it, and I took total price, put it along the rows. It's aggregated, so I go up to analysis, uncheck aggregate measures. My y-axis is kind of large because we got a lot of outliers, so we're just going to zoom in on the bulk of the data. We'll go 0 to, let's say, 2,000. So we can kind of get a feel of what's going on here. But then we wanted to test it with a trend line. So we drag trend line over here on the linear. And you can see our trend line's fairly flat. There's even an equation if you look. If you hover over the trend line, you'll see an equation. So that's how you do a correlation or a scatter plot in Tableau. And it's very useful for finding relationships between two continuous variables.